I am Laurie Strode. Laurie Strode is Jamie Lee Curtis. When I die, it will say Halloween actress dies. I know that.
Jamie Lee Curtis is a badass.
What really scares us, and garbage disposals scare me.
I'm sure you know why I've gathered you here today. Today's review is gonna be messy. There was so much more drama surrounding this movie than I anticipated, and I knew that the reaction was gonna be split, but some of y'all are embarrassing yourselves out here. There was mess at the premiere, the movie is a mess, and now the internet is a raging cesspool, but what's new? So I'm gonna kick off this review with a lot of behind the scenes dissection. Naturally, there are dozens of interviews online, so I'll be going through those and picking out the most interesting tidbits. After that, I'll be going over some of the online discourse, starting with Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton's negative experience with Jamie Lee Curtis. Then I'm gonna get into some of the fan discourse, and oh my god, you remember how I said that some of it is really embarrassing? Yeah, not exaggerating. After that, I'll get into my spoiler-free thoughts on the movie, just my general thoughts, and some of the technical notes I had on the film. And finally, I'll be doing a plot breakdown, so essentially breaking the movie down scene by scene and giving way more in-depth commentary. If you're wondering why this review is so late, it's because there were a couple of things that I wanted to see how they would play out online, and I'll be very curious to know your thoughts on the drama. But without further ado, let's get into the behind the scenes. Little history lesson: as we know, the original Halloween came out in 1978, which was 44 years ago, and Halloween Ends is the conclusion to a modern trilogy that is continuing that story. For a long time, it was rumored that Halloween Ends was meant to take place on the same night as Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. Writer Paul Brad Logan recently extinguished those rumors and said that that was never actually the plan. I think the confusion came last year when, in October of 2021, it was announced that this movie would take place 4 years ahead of Halloween Kills. That surprised me because I didn't know it was a rumor. I've been saying with my friends that that would have made more sense. I wish they'd stuck with that original plan. That's kind of ironic too, actually, though, because this movie deals with like misinformation. Anyway, Halloween Ends was written by 4 different men: David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, Paul Brad Logan, and Chris Bernier. And it definitely feels like it was written by 4 different people, that's for sure. As Green is the director, though, he really shepherded the entire writing process. He had the most creative input. And in an interview with Daily Distraction, he listed off a lot of the movies that inspired him.
There were a lot of movies, horror movies like Butcher Baker, Nightmare Maker, The Pit, Blood Rage. A lot of movies that and When a Stranger Calls is great, and When a Stranger Calls Back is awesome too.
He also spoke about a movie called My Bodyguard, which is not a horror movie, but it's a movie that is about schoolyard bullies, and this influenced him a lot as a child. And the bullies that are written into this movie do feel like they are pulled straight out of the 80s. They are not a modern band of goons in any sense of the word. It's very strange. He also talks about how this is kind of a departure for the trilogy, and he confirms that the title card is a reference to one of the biggest outliers of the franchise.
Even the font of the film is blue instead of orange when we're doing our title sequence is a little nod to Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch, which was its own curveball to the franchise.
Sure.
Halloween 3 is the only anthology and huge departure in this franchise, so it does make sense that they would pay homage with this movie because it does take a big swing, but also because Halloween 2018's original title card was a nod to the original, and then Halloween Kills had a nod to Halloween 2 from 1981. You're also probably aware that John Carpenter and Jamie Lee Curtis are executive producers on this film. John Carpenter has no real creative involvement. He just jams out the score and he collects his checks, and good for him. He did not get the career that he deserved, and you can kind of trace it back to the failure of The Thing from 1982. It's now hailed as one of the best horror movies ever made, but at the time of its release, it was a total flop, and it had this really unfortunate impact on the whole trajectory of his career. So now it's well deserved that he can just sit back and collect all the money that he was owed a long time ago. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis, on the other hand, was often consulted by David Gordon Green, but she is strangely humble about her creative involvement.
Jamie's not just the star of the movie, but she's someone I call on a Sunday and say, I'm rewriting the scene for tomorrow and something's not landing. What would Laurie do? And so there is that voice that I think keeps a truth of Jamie Lee in the character that we're creating. She brings ideas to the table, but she's not possessive of those ideas.
I don't have anything to do with the creation of these stories. I'm an actor, I'm a producer, but I'm an actor.
Tangent, you can also definitely tell that they would rewrite scenes the night before. Things get messy, but I'll come back to that later. I don't know why she's so humble about her creative input. She actually does influence quite a few moments of this movie. She is also one with Laurie Strode, and this has been an incredibly emotional time for her to say goodbye to that character and to this franchise. I can see why too, because according to all the actors and Green himself, he really fosters kind of a family type community on the sets that he builds.
Well, it's taught me the value of collaborators. We've had the same production team on all 3 of these movies. Every department head returned, so the PAs were the same.
For anyone who doesn't know, a PA is a production assistant and they do any range of tasks. Sometimes they're assigned more specific tasks, like they'll run first team around set or they'll go on runs. First team is the actors, so they'll be running around from hair and makeup to set, whatever, and the PA's job is usually just to like drive them around on the little golf cart and get them places on time. I did that once and I almost killed like 3 of the actors, I'm so serious. But golf carts are dangerous, not really my fault. And by going on runs, I mean sometimes the production will need things last minute, like another piece of the wardrobe or legal paper, or anyway. For the most part, PAs are kind of like the typical assistant. They keep the bathrooms clean, they run around and get coffee for everybody. So my point is, even all of those more menial jobs were consistently held by the same people according to Green. And I find that very impressive because I worked just a 3-week movie set gig and the way the PAs were dropping off like flies, oh my god. That gives me hope that it was a very safe and comfortable set to be a part of, so David Gordon Green, if you ever need a new like coffee bitch PA, just holler. Anyway, back to Jamie Lee, sorry. I got really choked up watching her interviews about her saying goodbye to this character.
The idea that I get to be known as the girl who never gave up is a really powerful, powerful legacy that I don't take for granted at all, and I am moved by it every time I really think about it, because it's just the human condition, and I represent the girl that has survived it, and it's a privilege for me. So Laurie Strode and Jamie Curtis are absolutely woven together, but honestly, what I don't understand, if I'm not getting emotional, what the fuck am I doing? It's not fake to me, because what you're talking about is something real. It's real. It's a feeling that you have for Laurie. That's real. Even though she's fictional, it's real. And that's important to me.
I don't even have adequate commentary to add to that. I feel like it really speaks for itself. She's done so much for women in the film industry just by being Laurie Strode. We have Sally from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and we have Jess from Black Christmas, iconic final girls, but I feel like Laurie was the one to really solidify the concept. Her character is the one that paved the way for all the trends of the 80s, and is probably largely the reason why horror is the only genre where women get to be on screen and speak as often as men. She didn't do that purposefully, but the point is that she's aware of it and she's proud of it. All the actors spoke highly of her and how much they learned from her and how much of an emotional experience it was saying goodbye.
I mean, watching Jamie get wrapped out was that was one of the most special moments
really iconic moment
I've ever witnessed. Watching Jamie get wrapped out was insane.
I love you all. I've been playing Laurie Strode for 44 years. That last day was not a particularly harrowing day. It was a pretty simple shoot day, but everybody knew it was my last day, and the entire crew was there, and all the actors showed up, and it was really emotional. It was powerful because I am her, and I've been her for a long time, and that relationship is the most important professional relationship I will ever have.
I would cry so fucking hard. I don't know how she holds herself together so well in these interviews. Like, imagine being this woman. She also made jokes in several interviews about how she knows that when she dies, it's gonna say Halloween actress dies at age whatever. The reason why this has been so emotional too is because she has been swearing up and down that this is her final Halloween movie. She even signed it into law. Okay, I'm kidding. Sort of.
Oh,
I
please,
declare.
stop it.
This is my last Halloween movie. I, Jamie Lee Curtis, Queen of Scream, daughter of Janet Leigh and Tony Curtis, mother of Lindsay Lohan.
I should call my lawyer first before I sign anything, but
There it is. There it is, folks.
This is not the first time she's sworn this, though. She didn't really want to come back for Halloween 2 in 1981, and she said that would be her last time. She said the same thing about Halloween H2O, and was infamously killed off in Resurrection. So now for the 3rd time, she's saying goodbye to Laurie Strode, and I do feel like the 3rd time will be the charm. This feels much more final. She is so much more emotional about it. She's 63, she's kind of had her last hurrah with all the stunts and such. By the time the next generation reimagines this franchise, I just just don't see her coming back. Her track record so far has been coming back every 20 years, and in 20 years she'll be 83, so maybe we'll see her in a cameo like we got to see a Nick Castle cameo in Halloween Ends. Anyway, I think that'll do for the behind the scenes, especially because we have plenty more to get into with the spoiler section. Let's talk about the reception of this movie and then the drama, because they are kind of intertwined. At the time of writing this review, it has made $63 million in its first 6 days on a budget of about 20 to 30 million. Monetarily, it's banging, like it's killing it. Critical and audience reception, that's a whole other ballgame, babes. This is one of the first things that pops up on Google ratings, and it's grim, to say the least. Similarly, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's at 39%, it's at 47% on Metacritic, it's got a 5 out of 10 on IMDb. What I tend to trust more is Letterboxd, because rather than kind of separating the professional and audience opinion, they're all just combined together. And it's grim, boys, it really is. It's been steadily dropping since its release. Also, a lot of the reviews you'll find on YouTube are very negative, with the random contrarian here and there. Some familiar faces that you'll find trashing the movie are Danielle Harris and Scout Taylor Compton, so yes, it's time to talk about them. There has been some discourse surrounding these women, and the fandom seems kind of split on whose side they're taking. So now what you've all been waiting for, my opinion. I'll give you a very brief rundown with a little bit of history, because it's not really a story, it's just something that happened, but you kind of need some context. Starting from the beginning, Danielle Harris has been involved in this franchise since she was 10 years old in Halloween 4. She played the daughter of Laurie Strode in 2 Halloween movies, and then she was also in Rob Zombie's Halloween in 2007. And then Scout Taylor Compton played Laurie Strode in both of Rob Zombie's films as well. They've kind of been talking shit on this trilogy since it began, and Danielle, I believe, has expressed that she has wanted to come back, and I think she kind of wanted a role in this new trilogy. So fast forward to the present, they get invited to the premiere of Halloween Ends. This is the first time they've been invited to one of these premieres. It's also the first time they have the opportunity to meet their idol, Jamie Lee Curtis. And it did not go according to plan. Dun dun dun! They were on the red carpet taking pictures when Jamie Lee Curtis showed up, and they were basically shoved off the carpet. And these girls had the audacity to act surprised about that.
You know, our goal was to like take a picture with Jamie Lee Curtis on the carpet, and I had said to Malik, like, that's all I want. Like, that would be my dream.
By the time we got to the end, like our last interview was kind of like when she
showed up.
When she showed up.
Yeah. We're like, oh yay, she's here. Perfect timing. Yeah. You know? They were like, Jamie's here, everybody off. And our publicist was like, okay, well, hold on. The girls have clearance, take a picture. And she was like, who? Off. Everybody get off. Pushed physically. Like, move out of the way, get off of the carpet. She is here. So we were ushered in, and there was like about 20 of us standing in the doorway of the Chinese theater just watching her, and everybody was taking pictures, and I was like, this is so odd.
Yeah, I was like, Danielle, I was like,
I don't want to take a picture.
I was like, I can't. No. I was like, this doesn't feel right. I was like, when it happens, it's gonna happen.
I'm just not sure what's confusing about that. They're not in the movie or the trilogy even, and then the star shows up. Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis's press is gonna take priority. I don't know what these women expected, but it reads a little entitled in my opinion. Regardless, they didn't have the opportunity to talk to her then. There was also this special video that someone put together, and they were just thanking Jamie Lee Curtis, and a bunch of celebrities sent in tapes. Danielle Harris was invited to, but she sent hers in too late, and so she kind of missed that opportunity as well. After that, they go on about how bad Halloween Ends is. I think they make some valid points, honestly. They do also qualify that they know how hard it is to make movies, but now they kind of understand why people have negative opinions about the movies they were in, because despite maybe not liking it, they had been invested in this newest trilogy, and so they kind of had a new perspective. I appreciated that. But I don't like the narrative that's been going around lately that if you knew how hard it was to make movies, you wouldn't be as critical. I'm sorry, the fuck? I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I've only ever seen white men making these comments. But Lee Whannell made this Twitter thread about how Quentin Tarantino put one of the movies that Whannell had written on his worst films of the year list or something. Notice how he also says, because I know how hard they are to make. Do you think that Quentin Tarantino doesn't know how hard it is to make a movie? Do we think that? I don't know.
Way to go, buddy. It took us 3 days to make that potato salad. 3 days!
face. And then Devin Sawa, love you, he chimed in and he said this: if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say it. Okay, here's my thing. If you don't receive constructive criticism, how are you ever gonna get better? I made a short film called Somnum. I think it's really good, and so did a lot of other people. But a handful of people didn't, and they made valid points in their criticism. I was like, this will inform me for my next project, and I won't make the same mistakes. I welcome people who are way more experienced in the industry talking shit on my work if it's gonna make me better. And also, people are allowed to have negative opinions. Like, I don't know what this is about. Back to the drama. At the after party, Danielle and Scout were nervous about approaching Jamie, so they approached her photographer instead and asked for a picture, I guess, of the 5 of them. It was a really cool kind of mashup of the Halloween actresses and the Nightmare on Elm Street actresses.
So I went up to the photographer and I said, hey, would you get a picture of all of us girls, of all of us? And that's when he was like, yeah, that would be epic. I think he had said something to her about like, we're gonna do this, as she had turned, and then I was like, okay, now's my chance. And I went up, she took out her hand, and she just said, Jamie Lee Curtis, and she shook my hand, and I said, hi, I'm Danielle Harris. I played, and she was just like, you know, but like, what's going on? Spit it out. And I said, I played your daughter, Jamie, well, Laurie Strode's daughter, Jamie, in the older Halloween franchise. And she goes, I don't remember exactly how it came out, but it was, I've never seen those movies. I don't watch those movies. There was a moment where I thought, I've heard this about her. I'm waiting for her to say like, but honey, I know you. I haven't seen them, but I know you. Or, oh my God, I haven't seen them, but that's awesome. Or something. You know, and she just said, I don't watch those movies. I've never seen those movies. I don't watch them. I don't know who you are. I was just sort of like a deer in headlight.
Here is the big debate. Was Jamie Lee Curtis an unnecessarily rude diva? I don't think so. Was it the most polite response? No, she could have just said, oh, okay, nice to meet you. But if you watch any interview with her, she's a very blunt person, so it does not surprise me. And if Danielle and Scout really knew their audience, they would know how adamant she is about not watching horror movies.
You say that, would you not go see the Halloween movies yourself if you weren't in them?
No, Jimmy
No,
Kimmel.
you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't. You know what? I would never show a horror movie to anybody. We're not a family of horror fans. It's not a part of our life.
All that being shown, I do think that they took Jamie's rejection a little bit too personally. I don't think that in any way Jamie was saying, oh, I don't watch those because they're not true Halloween movies, I don't respect you, or anything like that. She's just very, very adamant about not watching horror. She's a hater of the genre. She said so.
Well, I'm not a horror lover at all. You know, I'm a horror hater. I hate it.
But this is also a good lesson in not idolizing anyone. Most celebrities are weirdos, it's just a fact. So I think their feelings are totally valid. That must be really hard when you're actually involved in this franchise from age 10 like Danielle. But also, don't idolize celebrities. Don't idolize anybody. They also qualified that Jamie does not need to know who they are. That's not why they were upset. Just that her reaction to them was really abrasive and they wish that it had gone differently. So that has sparked debate online, as I said, and of course the movie has too. This time is a lot different than Halloween Kills, which was also very divisive, but I think because this is meant to be the end of this trilogy, the end of the franchise for now, so people are gonna have way stronger feelings about it. It was also a way bigger swing in a different direction than Halloween Kills, which was basically a Michael exploitation film, so people couldn't be too mad about that. This movie has sparked mess. I'm gonna pull up an example here, and I'm blurring her face because I do not condone harassment. I don't know who this is. I've never seen her content before. It's not about her. I'm sure she's really fun at parties. She's just one of the better examples I've found of the lunacy that this movie is causing.
I'm the biggest Michael Myers goon. Y'all do not see me complaining about him not being in the movie because it makes sense to the franchise. First of all, this entire franchise was created in order to give John Carpenter and Dobra Hill's Halloween
And we're gonna stop right there. I'm not gonna sit here and let anyone who calls her Dobra Hills tell me that I am not a Halloween fan. Girl, what the fuck? That is so embarrassing. Don't get me wrong, I've fucked up. People correct me in my comments all the time. Can't tell you how many times I have mispronounced Giallo. I'm still not even sure if that's how you say it. Giallo, fuck, I don't know. However, I don't think I have a track record of acting like an all-knowing asshole while fucking up that badly. Deborah Hill. It's not a hard name to remember. Whatever. The point is, people are embarrassing themselves on Twitter for free. Gatekeeping people because you think that you're a bigger intellectual than they are while calling her Dobra Hills. I can't get over it. Then I thought that this was some Twitter random that replied under this tweet where someone posted the TikTok. It turns out it's a bigger YouTuber, but I don't know who they are. Sometimes we need to hit people with shovels. Bro, what the fuck? Como se dice embarrassing. It's a decent sized channel called Drum Dums. Scream remains ahead of its time calling out toxic fandoms because holy shit, drum-dums? More like dum-dums. That's all I'm gonna touch on with the internet discourse. I think that kind of sums it up. People are just losing their ever-loving minds. And it's starting to rub off on me, so fuck off. So if you comment some dumb out-of-pocket shit, I'm just gonna mute you. You can comment into the void. I don't know who needs to hear this, but no one can tell you how much of a Halloween fan you are. We come in all shapes and sizes. Some of us are dumber than others, but damn it, we all love Halloween. It's frickin' bats.
It's frickin' bats. I love Halloween.
So that'll do for my coverage on the discourse, but by all means, suck me back in with your comments. Let's brawl. No, I'm kidding. It's time to talk about this movie, this godforsaken film. For my spoiler-free thoughts, I'm just gonna briefly go over the more technical aspects of the film and my more general thoughts. In general, I really disliked the movie. I ended up giving it 1.5 stars. I went in completely blind, didn't watch the trailer, and I'm so thankful that I didn't. Once we got back from the movie, we watched the trailer and I was gagged because the trailer shows the movie that I wanted to see. The trailer and pretty much all the marketing is selling this as the final showdown between Laurie and Michael. There's a whole lot of other bullshit that goes down, let me tell you. It's the most insane departure, probably right behind Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And I'm not mad about the departure, I'm only really mad about where it happened in this trilogy. They set up Laurie and Allison so well in 2018 and in Kills, and then in this movie, they become secondary characters in their own franchise. Some lad named Corey becomes the lead of this film. A while back, I can't remember, I think it was John Carpenter that teased that this installment would piss off the fans. I was like, pfft, nah. I thought it was just a marketing strategy, but they were being so serious. And naturally, it's led to a lot of discourse surrounding, oh, are you really a Halloween fan or are you just a Michael Myers fan? I'm both, and I don't feel like it really serviced either of those things. Conceptually, it's cool. I can understand why people are liking the way that they shook things up, but I'm sorry, it does not make sense with the mythos set up in 2018 and Kills. I also love Laurie's character development, but it doesn't really make sense how it happens when it does in this trilogy. Everything about this movie felt so backwards to me, like the character development and the new concept felt like it should have been introduced in 2018. They also butchered the character of Allison, and I get that it's kind of because she's gone through so much trauma and now she's a much different person, but she makes some choices that high school Allison would have been smarter than to make. Lindsay is also fully placed on the back burner when in Kills, she was swinging bags of bricks at Michael. She was right there. Why did they have to introduce Corey and
And the idea was to make the first movie had to kind of reintroduce people to the franchise, to these characters. Once that movie landed and was successful, we thought, mix it up, blow it up, turn it upside down, make this chaotic uprising of Haddonfield movie, which was going to be Kills. Ends, I wanted to make a love story. I wanted it to lean back into some atmosphere, talk about things that in a roundabout way apply to Michael, but aren't really pointing to his backstory. So we're talking about the essence of evil, manifestation of evil, and trying to bring what I felt like would be a satisfying conclusion to our boogeyman story.
I don't mind a change in tone. If he wants to make a romance, then fine, I'm cool with that. But to go from Kills, which has the most epic Michael Myers showdowns that we've ever seen, to this movie where he doesn't show up until minute 40, of course people are not gonna like that. It's me. I'm people. I can't get into my rage without getting into spoilers, so I'm gonna save my thoughts for the spoiler section. I do sympathize that Michael is an extremely difficult character to root for because Carpenter kind of painted the franchise into a corner, having a half human, half boogeyman.
I love interpretations, and one of the things that I think all the fans like about Halloween is to be able to have those conversations of how do you define evil and what is supernatural and all these things that I think I like to point to but not spell out. So keep a degree of ambiguity.
To Green's credit, I think that his air of mystery was mostly upheld. And he's right, this is a debate that I do love having. We only ever get these little nuggets that add to the conversation. That being said, there are some very contradictory things that happen in this movie that I have yet to make sense of. But I was mostly satisfied by the conclusion between Michael and Laurie. There's also some very heavy-handed messaging that's a subtextual exploration of life in America these past few years, or like the world, really. It tackles things like misinformation and how headlines can kind of dominate society and trickle down to an individual level. It's done a bit sloppily because some of the characters' motivations make no sense, but I think it's such an interesting topic. It's kind of exploring what makes a killer. And a cool swing to take by Green, but at this point in the trilogy, it was a swing and a miss in my opinion. That's where my main frustration lies, because we spend so much needless pointless time with this brand new Corey character. It ultimately feels so pointless because the movie does eventually round out to just be the last confrontation with Michael and Laurie. We could have cut out the first hour and a half of Halloween Ends and tacked on the last 20 minutes of it to Halloween Kills. That would have been perfect. When I do my rewatches, I think that might be literally what I'm gonna do. I might skip past Corey. It's too late to bring in someone new like that and then sideline our favorite characters. I don't care. Argue with the wall. Gonna wrap up that subject for now though and get into some of my more technical notes. One of my least favorite things about this movie besides the Corey story is all of the jump scares. Here are just a few of my least favorite dumbass scares. I think those dumbass scares can speak for themselves. Now for the score, I am surprised to report it is not that special in this movie, but like it gets the job done. The weirdest thing to me is that I just didn't really notice the score very much in this movie, whereas with Halloween 2018 and Kills, my jaw would drop at certain points. The soundtrack, on the other hand, goes so hard, I think you're gonna lose your mind at the needle drops in this film. I think all the acting is fantastic, even though I don't like Corey, I think Rowan is phenomenal in the role. Allison feels so much more grown, her development is definitely felt through the performance, even though there's some parts of it that I loathe. Jamie Lee Curtis is a badass as always, no complaints. Overall, do I recommend the movie? I don't know. This is one of my least favorite releases of the entire year, and so I can't in good conscience just be like, yeah, go see the movie, form your own opinion. Obviously, you should still do that. I always encourage going to see movies even if I hate it, because like, make your own opinion. But I think that especially for classic fans of this franchise, you're gonna have a hard time with this one. There were points I was so bored I wanted to walk out of the theater, and I'm so glad that I didn't because I feel like the last 20 minutes kind of made up for it. So proceed with caution, my beautiful babes. Especially now because I need to get into spoilers. We need to talk about this shit. From this point out, you are no longer safe, so if you haven't seen the movie, consider yourself warned. Plot breakdown. Away. Okay. We open the film being introduced to the babysitter Corey as he rolls up to his job for the night. And at first I was like, ooh, slay. A boy babysitter and he's hot? Nice. We see them hanging out and they're watching John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982, which is a fun homage to the original Halloween where they were watching The Thing from Another World. If you don't know, John Carpenter's The Thing is a remake of The Thing from Another World, and I've done a comparison on those movies, but anyways, that's the type of Easter egg that really gets me going, really revs my engine, you know? However, after that, paranoia starts to build as Jeremy is playing a prank on Corey, pretending the boogeyman has broken into the home. He traps Corey in an upstairs room, and when Corey breaks out, Jeremy is caught in the line of fire and he tumbles over the railing, passing away. And the credits roll. Okay, a little intense. I think this is a fantastic horror movie opening. A little out of place for the conclusion of a trilogy where this is suddenly the main character, but fantastic nonetheless. It's also an insane spin and subversion on a typical night in with a babysitter in a horror movie. Love it or hate it, it's completely unique.
You know, when Carpenter first made his Halloween film in 1978, there was a working title of The Babysitter Murders.
I never thought to recontextualize the phrase the babysitter murders. Making the babysitter the murderer? Okay, genius. I also have to say I really like the opening credits pumpkin, the pumpkins crashing out of each other. It sort of symbolizes the rebirth we see later in the movie. But then we open on Laurie, who is remarkably well adjusted in a new home, and she's writing her memoir, and we can pause here. Again, I feel this is a little bit out of place, but I'm really back and forth with it. It's just really jarring to see her this way. In 2018, 40 years had passed since Michael killed like 5 of her friends and she was a gun-toting hermit. Here, only 4 years have passed after a town-wide massacre and her daughter was murdered. I guess if they were gonna do that, I wish that the timeline had been reversed. I don't know, but I like 2018 the way that it is.
And you and I both know that Laurie went back to school 2 days later because that's what we did back in the 70s. We didn't, grief counseling and therapy didn't exist. Halloween Ends starts 4 years later, as you know. There was no way you could pick up after Halloween Kills. The energy of the filmmaking of Judy Greer's death, you couldn't start a movie at that pitch. And I just thought what David did was a really brave, big swing.
Having that perspective from Jamie Lee Curtis, I do kind of appreciate it a bit more because it is an accurate commentary to where we were at with treating mental health issues back in the 70s versus now after Halloween Kills, you would hope she'd get intensive treatment. So I've made my peace with her development here, especially because there are really cute moments where she gets to kind of act like the teenager she never got to be. Let me know your thoughts on Laurie's development throughout the trilogy though, I'm curious. There's a bunch of filler after this that infuriates me, like Corey getting a motorcycle and Allison getting pulled over by her creep of an ex. Allison would never date a cop, Your Honor. I plead insanity. I do like that she's a nurse now though, that does make sense. What I don't understand is why she needed Corey to tell her that she shouldn't let a doctor treat her like that, because 2018 Allison would not have taken shit. I'm getting ahead of myself. Around 18 minutes in, we see a shot from It 2017 signifying that Michael is now a sewer rat. The Pennywise-ification of Michael. If you put it next to the opening of It 2017, they are quite identical. Then we're introduced to the band geek assholes who are bullies pulled straight from an 80s movie. This irritated me. I'm so tired of this bully trope because I just feel like kids like that don't actually exist. Imposing urgent care levels of bodily harm is not something that I feel like happens often enough to warrant them constantly being depicted this way in movies. Especially because it's not the 80s anymore. Like, what are we doing? Anyway, it's a lot of filler to get to the point where Laurie is like, yeah, I brought him to you, Allison, because you need to get over yourself. And she does, I shit you not, one of the best line deliveries in cinematic history.
You know, you need to find someone that can let go, that makes you want to rip off your shirt and show grief your fucking tits and say, you know what? Let's go.
Yeah. Definitely the best example of Laurie reclaiming her inner child. My other favorite moment of this is when she's in the grocery store with Frank and he compliments her hair.
I like your hair.
Thanks.
I like that this movie is showing both sides of the coin, kind of what happens when we try to move past our grief in a healthy way and when we don't. Because Allison is sort of what we can imagine Laurie went through when she was a teenager after the events of 1978. So obviously she's at the very beginning stages of learning how to deal with that, and she's not handling it well, you know, as to be expected. And Laurie is the veteran of grief, and we finally get to see her have a couple moments of happiness. But then after that, we see the first really overt example of the town turning on Laurie.
He killed her husband and he stabbed her. She cannot speak because of you. You tempted and you provoked that man when you should have left him alone.
Why would you turn on Laurie Strode? Laurie Strode was 17 years old. She was an innocent.
Exactly. No, exactly. I get they're exploring the kind of trickle-down effects of societal tragedy, but in my opinion, it's a little sloppy. It represents how misrepresentation was spread because they have this DJ that is constantly spewing nonsense to these townsfolk, and it may represent some of us turning on neighbors or family for not getting vaccinated or other polarizing issues. But it makes no sense to turn on Laurie. I think those things are weird to kind of equate, but we'll get into that later. My point is it makes sense for the commentary, but not really for this universe. I just don't think that a survivor of multiple mass murderers is an appropriate metaphor for that, I guess. Anyway, Allison takes Corey out on Halloween and they dance, they have a great time until the mother of Jeremy sees Corey having fun and calls him out. Corey then ends up in Michael's hole after an argument with Allison, and Michael chokes him and his life flashes before his eyes, I think. Also, you could not tell me that this is not giving Twilight right now. Listen to the score, the vibes, the angst. Please, oh my god. I don't know what's going on here, and I get that they wanted to maintain a sense of ambiguity, but what the hell? Even Rowan said in an interview that he likes the direction of the movie because he really wants people to interpret the story in any way that they please. I just think that there's a little bit too much wiggle room here. Like, is he being empowered by Michael the way that incels are empowered by Andrew Tate? Is Michael possessing him? Because the following scenes would have you believe so, and initially that's where my mind went. He stumbles home, he's completely unresponsive to his mom, so I'm thinking, did Michael transfer his consciousness to his body or something? But no. There's a whole lot of filler after this that bothers me a lot, so I'm sorry if I kind of skip around, but there's just some scenes that I think could have been cut entirely. We do have a cool homage to the original where Corey is looking at Laurie from behind the bush into her window, so kind of a double homage. Then there's an annoying jump scare that ruins the moment. But after that, Laurie goes to his mom's house and nothing happens. His mom is just like, well, the townspeople needed a new boogeyman and so it became my son. It's like, yeah, he killed a child. Where have you been? Then Corey takes her to where the boy died. There's a confrontation between them and the cop at this diner. They kiss. It's all very boring. Things finally get interesting about 56 minutes in when the cop follows Corey down into the sewer and Corey is like, show me how to do it, Michael. Show me, daddy. And it's sort of revealed that killing people is what keeps Michael more or less invincible. How do we feel about this? I really like it. I like this reveal. It gives us just a little nibble of what makes Michael tick, but not revealing much more. I just hate that Corey is also there. Fuck off, Corey. Don't get me wrong, it's insanely interesting that Michael sensed something in Corey, that he like knew that he had the potential to be a killer. It does recontextualize some stuff that happens earlier in the trilogy, like in 2018, Michael lets that baby live, and then in Kills, he lets Lonnie live. I had always thought before that it's because he feeds on fear, and so he was letting people live to kind of spread the word and spread the fear. Now I'm like, oh, he actually just saw them as potential interns, and now Corey has the position. I don't know how I feel about that though, because I feel like that gives a little bit too much rhyme and reason to Michael, and maybe that's just my interpretation, I don't know, but I feel like that's what they were trying to go for. You know that phrase, real recognizes real? Well, maybe it's like, okay, evil recognizes evil or something. But this doesn't really track with the original movie, because back then in 78, he was just killing any and everybody. So then we get more frustrating scenes with him and Allison where he comes in like, I don't know what's happening to me, and he pins her against a wall. I found that to be so awkward. I don't know about you guys. And it's yet another infuriating example of Allison just blowing past all these red flags, because after that they fuck. Michael watches Laurie watch them go upstairs to fuck. It's very weird. Things become increasingly more confusing when Laurie meets Jeremy's father, who said he saw Corey, but he wasn't Corey anymore. So I don't know which it is. Are we born killers or are killers made? Because I don't think that Corey was a killer at all when he went down and saw Michael for the first time. At this point, things are feeling really messy. Corey and Michael then go as a team to kill the doctor and the nurse, and there's a great homage to the original kitchen kill, but it's very off-putting to see Michael have a coworker for his kills. Then there's more filler and the worst scare of the movie when Corey's mom slaps him and kisses him. There are more moments like that with his mom that I just haven't mentioned, but I think they're meant to signify his 13th reason, if you will. All I will say is that this man is very fragile because people have gone through far worse in their home life. Not that she's not horrible, not to discount that, but most people don't become a murderer about it. Like, that's so dramatic. After this is a preachy kind of moment where Laurie tells Corey to fuck off, and she's like, there's two types of evil. Though I'm not sure if this was in Corey's head or not, but alas. There's the external kind of evil, and then there's the internal kind, which is more dangerous because we might not know we're infected. Yeah, we get it. Republicans, racists, why don't you beat us over the head with it some more? And they do. Corey and Allison have a confrontation with the idiotic DJ who spews misinformation on the radio, and Corey ends up killing him.
She teased the man with brain damage and then he snapped. Once Willie get in the ear, it's like your favorite song stuck in your head.
I think this is also another legitimately interesting take where Allison has been listening to this radio DJ, and then later on in the movie she ends up turning against Laurie, her own grandma.
Because of the hysteria that you caused when I trusted you, my friends are dead, my parents are dead. You're the one that's capable of fucking harm.
And Allison was there. She experienced it. She knows what happened firsthand. And yet because of all this misinformation and stuff, she was still turning on her own grandmother. Repeated exposure to bullshit will fuck you up. Then we get some really fun deaths where Corey goes after the band kids. My favorite kill of the movie is probably the blowtorch to the throat for sure. And then he goes after Laurie. She fakes a suicide, which is an epic moment, and this leads to her shooting him, and he unalives himself. Here is where I would start the movie after Allison leaves and Corey's arc is done, because at this point it feels meaningless. Why the hell would you take so much time away from my girls if you're only gonna kill him off? Excuse me, have him kill himself off. Let me guess, commentary on the consumers of Fox News or whatever who refuse to get vaccinated, they're ultimately their own demise. I don't know, Green insists that he writes with story first, that he doesn't write around the commentary, but it always feels so obvious to me, and it always comes in between sensible story progressions. Like, he just killed all of those teenagers. Surely he would have the strength to fight Laurie off. What, he was so adamant about fighting for Allison, why not now? Whatever, here is where the movie finally gets good and we have the final showdown between Michael and Laurie. I love the knives to the hands specifically, and Laurie getting thrown around the kitchen. Hello, whilst editing, I realized I forgot to point out this little homage of Laurie sliding down the wall just like she did in the original Halloween. Jamie Lee Curtis actually did a good majority of the stunts herself because she wanted it to feel real. She said she didn't want it to look like a movie fight, but more like a street brawl.
I wanted it to be real. I wanted it to look real, feel real. It did feel real. It was scary. Although I have a great stunt double, nonetheless, it has to be me. And it has to hurt. She made a comparison to Tom Cruise that she's not quite doing it like that, but she did go through a lot of very real pain to get this scene done. It took them a week to shoot, and luckily she didn't have any major injuries or anything like that. She also influenced the decision of the inclusion of one of her worst fears, garbage disposals. What really scares us, and garbage disposals scare me. Who of us have not put something down the garbage disposal and then gone to retrieve it, and then the whole thing of like, okay, there's the switch, it's not on, putting my hand down here, you know.
I'll give it to her. I don't like fishing silverware out of the drain. I just think it's hilarious. I'd never thought about it. Like, yeah, they are terrifying, but I've never met anyone with a genuine fear of them. To the point where they're bringing it up in multiple interviews. But back to the fight, Laurie tells Michael, "You're just a man," and then she cuts his throat open. With one last hurrah, he grabs her throat before Allison comes in and decimates his arm like, "Not today." Then the town gathers together to toss him into a meat grinder, and thus ends Michael Myers. There are parallels to this ending in A Nightmare on Elm Street with Laurie kind of taking her power back from Michael. It's very much giving me Nancy saying, "I take back all the power that I ever gave you," and turning her back on him. But with Laurie, she looks him dead on and quite literally drains him of all of his power. Profound stuff. I like it. Picasso. I think that it would have been a disservice to Jamie if they had not let her kill her boogeyman one last time. I get that people think that Michael was disrespected, and to an extent I agree, because all of a sudden there's this new Michael, then they kill him off, it's pointless, what the fuck. But Michael was a sewer rat for 4 years, an animal that had resigned itself to death. This felt appropriate, it was cathartic, I liked it. Jamie also had another contribution to the ending where we see Allison leave Haddonfield and then Frank and Laurie sit together on the porch for a moment of happiness. I also forgot to mention in the very end there are shots of the house, but it's completely silent, no Michael breathing. The end of an era. Kinda sweet, kinda sad.
My contribution to Halloween is that the last scene takes place on the front porch of her house. I actually said to David, and I had started to cry when we were talking about it. Halloween began in Haddonfield on this beautiful fall day with leaves, you know, wind blowing leaves and kids riding bikes. And I said, it's not a happy ending movie. There's no celebration of anything. It's sad, but there's a drop of hope that maybe Laurie Strode will have a minute in her life that's at peace. And I said, I really think, Dave, we need to move this to the front porch, and I think you need to show kids on bikes that there's a chance for Laurie Strode, that it's going to be okay. That's my contribution to Halloween, really.
I love that even more. To see how deeply she seems to connect with the character and how desperately she wanted to give her a glimmer of hope and happiness, that really struck a chord with me. Innocence and peace will prevail even after the darkest of days. And Laurie represents nothing if not perseverance. Listening to the interviews always does help me get a new perspective, and even after that, I still don't like the movie, but I have a little bit more appreciation for their intention. I like the concept, I like a lot of Laurie's moments, but just something about it did not all fit together for me. Of course, I want to know all your thoughts down below, so go absolutely bonkers down there. I'll be replying the best that I can. I already know we're gonna need a spoiler chat live stream soon, so be on the lookout for that. I'll also be going on live soon to be re-ranking the entire franchise, as well as going on a separate live with my dad to do a spoiler chat of the original Halloween because he's never seen it. So he'll be watching it for the first time very soon. I'm really curious to see what he thinks. But now it's time to thank these lovely people who made this video possible, my patrons. This review might have been very late, but I did post a bonus video over on Patreon with my thoughts the day after the movie came out. So even if sometimes my reviews are a little late, I can almost guarantee that my thoughts will be up usually the day after a movie premieres on Patreon. If you'd like bonus content, including all of my first reactions to new horror releases, then come join us over there. If not, all my social media is linked down below, so go have fun. At the end of it all, I am gonna be so curious to see what David Gordon Green is going to do with the Exorcist reboot. That is gonna be nuts. No idea what to expect after Halloween ends. So I hope that you subscribe, click the like, the notification bell, all that helps me out, and it's so you'll never miss another video from me, because we will be talking about that soon. I'm gonna have another horror news live stream at some point soon as well. But I hope that you enjoyed this video, stay away from tormented white men, and I hope that I catch you in the next one. Bye!